you have put the thyroid gland in its proper position, both in its cross section and in its frontal view, and then again you have to complete the, I suppose, the skin and subcutaneous tissue and everything. So what we have actually done is, roughly we have drawn a cross section of the neck, not a very wonderful cross section, but a reasonable cross section. We have drawn skin, we have drawn the anterior jugular veins, we have drawn the platysma, investing layer of the deep cervical fascia splitting to enclose sternocleidomastoid and trapezius over the anterior triangles and posterior triangles. Then we have come to the pre-infrahyoid level of muscles. We have the sternohyoid, omohyoid, sternothyroid. Then we have the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. Then you have the isthmus and lateral lobes of the thyroid gland. Along the posterior border you have fixed the parathyroid glands. Behind the thyroid you have drawn the trachea, connecting the trachea or the cricoid process to the thyroid sheath. You have the ligament of Berry. Behind that you have the esophagus, and in the tracheoesophageal groove you have the right and left recurrent laryngeal nerves. Behind the posterior surface of the thyroid you have the carotid sheath with the internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein, vagus nerve. Behind the sheath you have the sympathetic trunk, and behind this entire structure you have the vertebral column, thoracic vertebra, prevertebral muscles, and you have drawn the erector spinae, and you have the prevertebral layer of the deep cervical fascia, and we have shown that the carotid sheath is formed partly by the pretracheal and partly by the prevertebral layer of deep cervical fascia, and in front of the prevertebral layer you have the prevertebral space over here. So you have the prevertebral space, or this is also called the retropharyngeal space. So the retropharyngeal and prevertebral spaces are somewhere here. So now you know what the thyroid gland looks like and how it is placed. So this anterior, and you have these anterolateral, medial and posterior surfaces. Now we have already seen the relations of the anterolateral surface. It is these muscles which are actually covering the thyroid gland. If you want to go to these muscles in a different way, then you have to draw the, suppose, the manubrium of the sternum, and then you have to draw the thyroid cartilage, and you have to draw the hyoid bone. So once you have drawn the sternum, the thyroid cartilage and the hyoid bone, and you also have to draw the clavicle over here, and you have drawn the clavicle, then you automatically know that this is the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage over here and here. So this muscle, a convergent muscle over here, this is the sternohyoid muscle. So this is the sternohyoid, and by the side of the sternohyoid muscle you have the omohyoid muscle. So omohyoid muscle is like this. This is then omohyoid. So you have drawn sternohyoid and omohyoid, and underneath the sternohyoid you have the sternothyroid, which is a divergent muscle. This is the sternothyroid. From underneath the sternohyoid you have the sternothyroid, and beyond the sternothyroid you have the thyroid muscle like this. This then is the thyroid muscle. So now you have drawn the strap muscles. This is sternohyoid, this is sternothyroid, this is thyroid, and this is omohyoid. Now all these muscles are supplied by the descendants hypoglossi and the ansa cervicalis. They are actually carrying fibers from C1, C2 and C3, all derived from the cervical plexus. So if you go back to your study of the cervical plexus, the formation of the ansa cervicalis and the contribution of the C1 and C2, how they are piggybacking on the hypoglossal nerve and forming the descendants hypoglossi, connecting with the descendants cervicalis and forming the ansa, and the entire C1, C2 and C3. So the C2, C3 mainly supplying the infrahyoid muscles. Then you will form a clear conception of that thing. So this medial surface of the thyroid gland, you have the lateral lobes of the thyroid, you have to deal with separately. To deal with the medial surface, we will have to again draw the thyroid cartilage. So if you draw the thyroid cartilage, suppose this is the thyroid cartilage, and from the thyroid cartilage this is the cricoid cartilage, and this this is the trachea going down. So behind the trachea you again have the esophagus. So this is esophagus. This part is pharynx. And again we have said that from this point you have the inferior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. So this is the inferior constrictor attached along the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, jumping from the thyroid to the cricoid and going in this direction. We have said that this is thyropharyngeus part and this straight one is the cricopharyngeus part. Not only that, between the thyroid and the cricoid cartilage you have the attachment of the cricothyroid muscle. So cricothyroid muscle and inferior constrictor muscle, larynx and trachea, pharynx and esophagus, all these structures are there. So because we are saying this is the trachea, let us draw one or two tracheal rings. And again we have to place the thyroid gland on this. So the thyroid gland will extend, the upper pole will come from this point, and this is how the thyroid gland will go down. If we have to wipe some more of this, then you can get the thyroid gland say up to this point, up to the 5th or 6th tracheal rings. You can get the thyroid gland like this, and again you have the trachea and esophagus. So the lateral lobe of the thyroid gland, and somewhere here would be the isthmus. So the lateral lobes of the isthmus again extend from the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage to the 5th and 6th tracheal rings, and it will overlap part of the larynx, part of the trachea, part of the pharynx, part of the esophagus. So two tubes, pharynx and larynx, trachea and esophagus, two muscles, inferior constrictor and cricothyroid, and it is related to two nerves, the external laryngeal nerve and the recurrent laryngeal nerve. So in the tracheoesophageal group you have the external laryngeal nerve and the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and you have the superior thyroid artery and you have the inferior thyroid artery. So superior thyroid artery and inferior thyroid artery, external laryngeal nerve and recurrent laryngeal nerve, larynx and trachea, pharynx and esophagus, and two muscles, inferior constrictor and cricothyroid. So these are all the relations of the medial surface of the lateral lobes of the thyroid gland, and you can see this. Both you can see part of the esophagus and you can see part of the trachea. So trachea and esophagus are both there. You can see one of the nerves, and this posterior border of the thyroid gland, it is also related to the parathyroid glands. Now the superior parathyroid gland is found roughly at the middle of the posterior border, but the inferior parathyroid gland could be anywhere. It could be close to the lower pole, it could be midway, it could drop down, and it could go even up to the superior mediastinum, because the superior parathyroid is developed from the 4th pharyngeal arch, so it is called parathyroid 4, and the inferior parathyroid gland is developed from the 3rd pharyngeal pouch. So 4th pharyngeal pouch, 3rd pharyngeal pouch, because the lower one is developed from the 3rd pharyngeal pouch, so the inferior parathyroids are also called parathyroid 3, and because they are developing with the thymus, also developing from the 3rd pharyngeal pouch, and the thymus is migrating down from the neck into the thorax, so it usually drags the inferior parathyroid down to a variable distance. Therefore ordinarily we expect the superior parathyroid at the middle of the posterior border, and we expect the inferior thyroid border, inferior parathyroid gland, the pair of the inferior parathyroid gland, close to the lower pole. So now we have studied the relations on all sides of the thyroid gland. We have seen that the anterolateral surface is covered by the infrahyoid muscle, the medial surface is related to these viscera, muscles and nerves, and the posterior surface is related to the carotid sheath, and the anterior border contains the descending branches from the superior thyroid artery. The posterior border contains again the descending border branch from the superior thyroid artery and ascending branch of the inferior thyroid artery, these two anastomoses. So a branch from the superior thyroid artery descends along its posterior border, a branch from the inferior thyroid artery ascends along its posterior border, and the anastomose, and it is this branch, this ascending branch of the inferior thyroid artery, which actually supplies all 4 parathyroid glands. So all 4 parathyroid glands are primarily supplied by the inferior thyroid artery and not by the superior thyroid artery, or usually by a mixture of the two. So if you damage the inferior thyroid arteries, you are going to in effect damage the parathyroid glands also. That you must keep in mind. So when you are actually dissecting along the posterior border of the thyroid gland, you must first isolate the recurrent laryngeal nerve, dissect out the branches of the inferior thyroid artery actually going into the gland, and isolate and preserve the parathyroid glands. If you cannot preserve all four, at least try to preserve three or at least two. And if you can identify them or you have cut them out, then those parathyroid glands you have to still preserve them and try to embed them within the sternocleidomastoid muscle, hoping that they will derive some sort of nutrition from the good blood supply of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. That is the reasonable thing to do anyway. So we have drawn the anterolateral surface, we have drawn the overlapping structures on the medial surface. Now we are left only with a posterior surface. Now if you draw the thyroid gland from behind, suppose you draw the same thing, this thyroid glands, you draw them from behind. It looks more or less the same, either from the front or from behind. It still has that almost butterfly-like structure. But then suppose this is the posterior border. This is the posterior border, such that this is the anterolateral surface, this is the medial surface. Then from the upper pole you have coming down the anterior branch of the superior thyroid artery has gone like this, and the posterior branch is descending down. And you have over here the inferior thyroid artery, which has an ascending branch like this, and it has glandular branches going inside the thyroid gland itself. And you have the recurrent laryngeal nerve ascending along with the inferior thyroid artery like this. So you see they are quite a distance apart, and just at the inferior pole they are coming close together. That is why traditionally we used to say that you have to cut the inferior thyroid artery here away from the lower pole. Although now we are saying that it's better to cut these individual branches and spare the parathyroid glands. One parathyroid gland here and one close to the lower pole. Usually one close to the lower pole. So when you are dissecting this posterior border, you have to be rather careful so that you don't injure the parathyroid glands or the recurrent laryngeal nerve, either of the two. So now more or less we have covered all around all the different parts of the thyroid gland. Now just a summary of the blood supply. The thyroid gland's arteries supplies from the superior thyroid artery and inferior thyroid artery. Superior thyroid artery giving an anterior branch and a posterior branch. Inferior thyroid artery mainly supplying the four parathyroid glands and giving minor branches into the thyroid substance itself. Not only that, the inferior thyroid gland is quite a powerful artery. Apart from the thyroid gland itself, it has got many other supply areas. It supplies partly the esophagus. It is one of the main supplies for the trachea and the surrounding soft tissue. Similarly, the superior thyroid artery, apart from the thyroid, it gives sternomastoid branches. It gives the superior laryngeal branch. It gives small multiple branches. We will go into that later on. For now, we are just considering the main thyroid gland supply of the superior thyroid artery. When we study the entire distribution of the external carotid artery and the subclavian arteries, then we shall go into the other branches. So this is always a moot point. What structures does the superior thyroid artery supply apart from the thyroid, and what structures do the inferior thyroid arteries supply apart from the thyroid? Although they are named as thyroid arteries, they supply many other things besides the thyroid. That is something you have to keep in mind. And apart from these two major areas of supply for the thyroid gland, we have said that you can have an additional supply from directly from the arch of the aorta, that is called the arteria